This is a Film Stories original podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the Xcast. The truth is in here. I am Tony Black, once again your host, talking about Plus One, the third episode of the 11th season of the X-Files. And with me once again is Paige Schechter.
Hi.
Hi, Paige. We're back for a bit more discussion about this episode. We've already talked about Mulder and Scully. I've gone on record as being a hopeless romantic and clearly more of a shipper than I thought I was before this conversation. So maybe it's just as they get older, I'm just becoming more of a shipper, or I'm becoming more of a big soppy case as I get older. But clearly one of the two is true. But today we're going into darker territory because we're devoting this episode to talk about the dual characters of Judy / Little Judy and Chucky, played by the villains of Plus One, played by Karen Conovel, who awesome performance, absolutely brilliant performance by the actress who's best known obviously to X-Files fans as Mrs. Peacock from the episode Home, the legendary episode Home in season 4, where she played one of the best sort of monsters, even though it was more her sons who were the monsters, but she was involved. She was culpable as well. One of the best characters the show ever did. So it was going to be a tall order topping that, and I think she pretty much does it on the whole. These are two very different characters, but I think she's sort of once again created two really, really memorable standout monsters. Paige, I don't know about you.
Oh, I totally agree, because I don't read up on any of the episodes, and I actually turned the show off before the preview of the coming attractions. And I didn't know it was her being Chucky at first. Yeah. So, brava.
You're not the only person to say that, actually. Somebody else I know said exactly the same thing, that he did not know that she was Chucky. And I wonder, you see, I did know that she was playing more than one role. So I'd love to sort of watch this without that knowledge, because I'm wondering if I would have guessed. I don't think I would. I really don't think I would. I think it's a testament to how much of a chameleon she is in the role, that I think she just gets lost in playing these characters.
It was just outstanding, just mind-blowing.
Yeah. And the characters themselves, I suppose, they're the first... They're some of the first monsters. Well, you see, I've been wondering about this, and I wrote a review about it. And my thinking is that Plus One is the first Monster of the Week episode, the first pure Monster of the Week episode, I think, since probably Thief in season 7. Now, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I went back and I thought about it, and I thought, in terms of Mulder and Scully investigating.
Okay.
We've had loads of Monster of the Weeks, obviously, since, with Doggett and Reyes and season 8 and season 9 and everything. And last season we had things like, Founder's Mutation, where they were out investigating a case, but there was a bit of Syndicate stuff in there, there was a bit of William. You had Home Again, where there was the trash man, but you also had Scully, with a mom and things like that. So, if you track all the way back and you go back to when they were in the FBI, they were investigating when it was normal, and then you go back through season 7, which had, towards the end, lots of strange little episodes, comedy episodes, Just Sweat, Hollywood AD, Fight Club, all these different things. If you go back to a pure Monster of the Week, I really think it's Thief. And that's so long ago.
That is a long, long time. No wonder it felt like such a gift to get this episode, to get a classic sort of X-Files. Right.
And it does have other elements in it, as we talked about. It's got the Mulder and Scully shippy stuff, it's got a little bit of that, and Chris Carter is capable of doing comedy in certain ways. He's capable of black comedy. So there's little moments of that in there, but it's still, quite a creepy, monster story. And I think, it was, I just think it's nice to have that back. I think it's nice that we got two characters like, well, 3 characters, I suppose, 3 or 4 characters of Judy and Chucky. Which of them did you prefer as characters?
Which did I prefer? I don't know. They all they all added so much to the episode. At first when we meet her, you're like, oh, this is a nice lady, and then it turns into this dookie flinging thing. By the way, I think using dookie is a little over the top, but
right. Can I just interrupt because I what is dookie? I'm a Brit. I don't know what dookie is.
Poop.
Oh my god! It is. I thought it was.
Oh, that's great. I come on a podcast and I'm talking about poop. Can we go back to you being overly shippy?
But she's got a tin that says dookie on it.
Right. In this case, it's a food, and that's why I think it's a little much to call her food substance dookie and then have her flinging it, at Scully at the door. So
dookie isn't a brand name then of a food, because I keep thinking, what's dookie? I've never heard of dookie. No.
I can't imagine. Maybe it is, but I can't imagine dookie as a food doing that well on the market when people know what that means.
We have different names for this stuff in the UK. We really, it's like I don't know if you've heard, but we have a very, very different name for the word Trump than Americans do. Even taking Donald Trump out of the equation, which is why another reason we find him so hilarious, because Trump actually means fart in the UK. So to us, he's Donald Fart, right? And he always has been. So, that makes it. He makes him even more of a stupid figure.
See, in real life, Donald Fart is funny, and if you use dookie as a food, it seems to be going too far.
Well, I'm glad I found out what dookie was, and I love the fact we spent probably at least 2 minutes of this podcast talking about poo, which is just perfect. But it's it sums up the character of Judy, who was very meek and sort of childlike, wasn't she? As the two sides of Karen Conneval's female character.
I sort of liked evil Judy, creepy Judy. What are we calling the second Judy?
Well, it gets into this big discussion of evil, doesn't it? And whether the darker side of nature and things like that. But it was Little Judy, wasn't it? Wasn't Little Judy
Judy
the bad one, the evil one?
Yes.
Who was flinging the dookie, and then you had just Judy, who said, I'm a famous actress to Scully, and he was just a bit deluded. But
I don't think I've ever seen Scully more incredulous than when she said she was a famous actress, and Scully has seen some pretty wild things.
Yeah, was she there when in Small Potatoes the woman in the bed says she's seen Star Wars like 400 times? I'm sure Scully was there in that moment. Because that's got to rival. Her face there was a picture. It's like, you've what? This was the same. But yeah, I did like that character. And then Chucky was great. I mean, the fact she managed to just pull off this really sort of irascible, gravel voiced. You know what? Right, this is going to sound horrible, but he reminded me of Frohickey. He was like an extreme Frohickey. You could have got Tom Braidwood to play that character, I think.
Tony, that's a bunch of dookie, let me tell you. Oh my god.
He did. I was just like, especially when he's saying, that redhead, I'll have a go if you don't, and all this kind of thing. I just like, that's just Frohickey. But obviously an evil, version. But
a creepy little Frohickey.
A creepy little Frohickey with obviously these two have powers as well. They have I suppose this is, and did I miss this? I don't know, but did we get an explanation as to how they were able to do what they did, like psychically?
No,
I don't think we did we? They just can.
They just can. But I loved how they set that up with the hangman and the U and the L and the space, and you're like, where are we going? Are we going Mulder? Are we going Scully?
That was really clever, actually. That was really cleverly done, because you didn't realise just until that moment that they have the same letters in certain orders in their names.
Yep, and I'm like, why haven't I thought of this sooner?
That's very clever.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you taking something as simple as like hangman, something that people play all the time, which doesn't have sinister connotations, You know, I'm never going to be able to play Hangman quite the same way again. I'm going to be thinking of this episode now.
I bet you're going to be playing Hangman more now.
Yeah. When I've got someone I hate, I'm going to be like, yes. I suppose it was like a sort of a psychic version of like voodoo, wasn't it, in a way? Like the voodoo doll kind of thing, where you put pins in someone and from a distance and then they die. And this is like a psychic voodoo, I guess, really. But yeah, we didn't get an explanation as to how they would do it. Although there was some nice suggestions as to the fact they killed their parents.
Oh, that was mega creepy, and I loved it.
That was so good. Where you saw at the end, Mom and Dad. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was like, oh, because just before then I was thinking, well, what happened to their parents? Because there was a line earlier that said that they'd hung themselves. So in my head, I was then thinking, okay, did parents have the same ability, and did they then both kill each other? You know, in the same kind of way. So my thinking was, maybe that's what happened to the parents. But then when you see Mom and Dad, I was like, oh, that's chilling. That's really scary. That they killed their parents because they had this ability, this gift, or whatever it was. You know, but I want to know more. I want to know, you know, how did they figure out how to do this? How did they, you know, how do they project the evil doppelgangers? What's that about? How can they do that? Just questions, Paige.
How can he work at the jail and also be in the shrink ward? I don't know.
True. That's true. Yeah. I know that's the whole point.
I just thought of that right now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe we're just not meant to ask. I don't know. I think they're good questions worth asking, really, because it's, you know, it underpins us, and you know, it could be a criticism, I suppose, from some people that we don't know enough about that. I mean, I suppose the theory, Scully doesn't really get to necessarily theorize a scientific explanation for that. She's theorizing scientific explanations for the car, you know, being swerved off the road and things like that, and the whole idea of when the ids come for Mulder and Scully, that she's rationalizing it and saying, I know you're not really there, you know, talking to I know you're not really there, I'm you know.
But when she does that, the creepy Scully sort of leaves her alone. Meanwhile, Mulder is confronting his, and so there's a physical battle going on. So maybe she's right.
Yeah, that's what I thought, actually. I think Chris Carter's trying to make the point here that if you turn and face, you know, mentally your demons, as opposed to trying to actually fight them, you know, in certain ways, I think it's a bit of a sloppy metaphor, I think, or I'm not quite sure where I'm going with it, but I think he's trying to make some point. I
understand. You're right. You know, it's about you facing the biggest villain you face is yourself, and so if you can take that and use that, then you'll be able to come out on top, which is what where I thought he was going with it.
Yeah, well, I think so. I think also there was maybe a bit of a commentary on their positions as believer and skeptic. You know, that Mulder's willing to throw himself at fighting the darkness, and Scully's much more, you know, standing back and saying, well, this isn't the case, this isn't real, you know, let's just take a step back. And I think it was sort of a bit of a manifestation of that, I guess. But yeah, it was an interesting power to throw at them, and I think that, you know, Judy and Chucky as characters, even though they weren't in the entire episode, I think they just made a real mark in, as I say, in how Karen Connevel performed them. You know, she managed to just get a lot of theatricality, I think, into these roles, and should have, you know, bring things out of them. Like there was this weird sort of creepy, seductive thing going on with the evil Judy. You know, just like at the same time, even though she's really twisted and evil, it was, yeah. She just got a lot out of it, which I was really impressed by.
And I give all the credit in the world to Karen, because, you know, this could have been another Fight Club if it wasn't in her hands. You know, if she wasn't performing the way she did, you know, we could have just been shaking our heads right now going, oh no, Fight Club 2.
Yeah, I definitely. And it's funny because when I wrote about this episode, I didn't mention Fight Club, and it was only afterwards when I saw people talking about Fight Club, I was like, oh yeah, Fight Club exists. Because I think I've tried to erase it from my mind, if I'm honest. That was Kathy Griffin, wasn't it, as the twins? That was a terrible episode. You know, Mulder does get beat up in that one, if I remember rightly, but
everybody gets beat up in that one.
Everybody gets beat up. It's just really bad. It's a really bad episode that I've tried to forget. So this I think does Doppelgangers justice in the sense that they were really... I mean, it reminded me of... have you ever seen the film Lights Out? Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Well, the original short film is far better than the movie itself. The movie's all right, but the original short film is terrifying. It's like 5 minutes, you know, and I invite anyone who likes stuff like The X-Files to go on YouTube. It's free. Find Lights Out, the first small movie, and you will not sleep tonight. I guarantee, okay? And there were moments that just reminded me of that, and you might see what I mean. Well, it's a different premise, but that whole idea of just something staring at you with this blank, expressionless face, and especially when it's yourself, I was just chilled. And there were moments, I don't know if you heard this, but I always listen out for Mark Snow's music. And there were moments where he really draws this real sort of atonal kind of thing. And it just chills. There's just something about that just made me go, ugh.
I thought it was a great episode for Mark Snow. You know, the sound cues were so different and unique, and then pulling in, you know, what we know as traditional X-Files at the same time. I thought it was a great episode musically.
Yeah, because there's been some interesting chatter about that, actually, about whether that he's been a bit too, you know, up-tempo and douche with his music, which I think was appropriate given the fast-paced nature of the last two episodes. But this one, because it's much more of an investigative, you know, drama, you know, mystery, creepy, weird drama, he goes back a bit more to those sounds, really, and I think it fits with characters like Judy and Chucky when they're on screen. When you see these, you know, when you get these creepy moments and, you know, the score backs it up.
And also the character of Dean when he was trying to put his swords and his blades away. Yeah. I loved the music underpinning that.
Yeah, that was really good. That was really good. I think that was the other thing, though, with Judy and Chucky, in that I wondered how they chose their victims, because there was obviously this commentary about, you know, that they choose people who are potentially prone to mental illness because they're criminals or they're just on the wrong side of the law and things like that. But it might have been something I missed. But
yeah, it was because of the jail, the people that Chucky had seen at the jail.
Yeah, but why did they... But what... I suppose that is an explanation, isn't it? They just didn't like... They
found
those people.
A particular person to be a loser worthy, if you could use that word, of being finished off in this fashion.
But what's the motivation, though, in a way? I mean, that's the thing.
They're
I suppose
nuts.
That's part of...
You don't motivate nuts.
That's part of the mystery, I guess, isn't it? How did they get to that point, though? How did they get to the point where they just started killing off people they thought were deserving of, you know...
It was an accident. They were playing a game of Hangman, and the babysitter wound up dead. And they're like, "Oh, look what we could do!"
That's as good an explanation as we're going to get in it, really.
Yes.
I'm happy with that. I can live with that page. But yeah, it proves it's a great X-File when I want to know more about these people. And Chris Carter just gives you enough, and then there's plenty that you can just theorise about and infer. And even if I did think that it was a bit abrupt at the end, and the resolution with how Judy and Chucky both end up killing each other, it just felt a little bit like, surely they've had little rows before. Surely they got to the point where they could have done this before. Why are they suddenly now killing each other off? So I thought it was a bit convenient to save Mulder and Scully's bacon. But... Yes,
but we've seen that before in like How the Ghost Stole Christmas. You know, how are they going to get out of this? Oh, okay, they're out of it.
Yeah, it didn't destroy the episode for me. I think it was a bit abrupt. I think it could have been a little bit smoother, and it all ends just in a bit of a okay, that's over. But yeah, the build up and everything else was good enough, and those characters were tremendous. So excitingly, it looks like we're going to get Karen Conover on the show very soon to talk about playing Judy and Chucky. So I can reveal that right now. She's coming on to talk to us about playing these parts. So that's exciting, Paige. We can get to hear from the lady herself.
That is going to be great. Can't wait.
Absolutely. So that's coming very, very soon, guys, to time with our +1 coverage. So stay tuned. But we're not quite done yet. We've got one more episode to go talking about this great little X-File. So we'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode talking about +1. So until then, remember, trust no one.